we can
Oh, that's
immediately
even better.
we can immediately get right into it and start geeking out about
Great.
octopuses.
Yeah.
So we are live. We got people coming in. We have greetings from Serbia.
Amazing.
Hi.
Yeah, so greeting from Mexico, Serbia.
Oh my goodness.
Amazing.
Yeah, so something that shocks me about OctoNation, just because I always thought algorithms would just like push out our content to just US based things, but 50% of our audience is international. So that's
cool.
pretty cool. Yeah. Octopuses definitely are, an international thing. So
they're loved globally.
Yes. So we're still in October. So it is still Octopus month. We got Chloe's back, said, "Hi, I'm back. Welcome back. Thanks for." So we had to push this. We messed up because apparently it's daylight savings time. What in Australia? Okay. So
yeah.
That's fine.
I'm sorry, guys.
So
I realized later I was like in the middle of dropping kids off, walking dogs, and I got the email. I was like, oh no.
Octopuses are not bound by our human things.
No.
So we got Chris. Chris is here. He's our creative director. He said, "Oh my God, hi, Chris." Bobby's in the house.
Chris.
We got Margaret here. Okay, let's get started.
Amazing.
So we have lots to talk about as it relates to octopuses and octopus intelligence. If you all had a chance to see the latest blog that Dr. Alex Schnell did for us on our website, you can totally check that out. It's already kind of taking off. I Googled, just for the heck of it, I Googled Octopus IQ this morning and it was number 3. So
that's exciting.
So anybody that Googles that will find that. So that's really cool. But we just wanted to bring you on and talk about octopus intelligence. I was looking the other day, and still one of the most search terms are octopuses really smart? And so people are always kind of equating them to dogs. They're equating them to other animals. They're equating them to just anything that I feel like they can wrap their heads around. And so I thought this would be a really good, interesting conversation to kind of end Octopus Month on and answer everybody's questions as it relates to octopus intelligence. So thanks for joining us.
Oh, so happy to be here.
We will be playing tons of clips. And I don't know, Alex, if you wanted to give kind of a brief overview of just the blog that you wrote and kind of our understanding currently of octopus intelligence, because even when I was publishing the blog, I wrote a couple captions and you were just like, I don't know if the research is out there to talk about octopuses and foresight. So don't know if you just, actually, I guess we can all introduce ourselves for those who don't know. Hi, I'm Warren, founder of OctoNation. Chelsea.
Hello, I guess welcome back and welcome to those if this is your first live. I'm Dr. Chelsea Bennice. I'm at Florida Atlantic University, an octopus scientist, and I'm also OctoNation's science advisor, and the community knows me as Octo Girl underwater. So excited for this live.
Cool. Alex.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Schnell. I am a marine biologist / comparative animal psychologist. And so I study animal minds, how they learn, how they remember, how they make decisions. And I focus on a lot of my research on cephalopods, so both cuttlefish and octopus.
Nice. And so the blog that you wrote for us is the beginning of a series. Do you just kind of want to touch on the blog and kind of how we understand octopus intelligence to date?
Absolutely. So it is really difficult to try and measure the IQ of an animal, especially because they can't take a standardized test the way that we test human IQ, and they can't speak, they can't have a conversation with us. So what we do look for are certain a toolkit, a cognitive toolkit, if you will. And in this toolkit, there are kind of 4 pillars. And so one of them is flexibility. So the reason flexibility, and that's what the current blog is about, is important in intelligence, is because it means that the animal isn't hardwired to just kind of give have one solution to all the problems. They can look at different problems or different challenges that come up in their environment, and they can flexibly adapt depending on what is going to be the most beneficial way to overcome that challenge. And so when an animal shows this behavioral flexibility, it means that they can usually thrive in changing environments. It means that they can change the way that they hunt, the way that they find shelter, the way that they interact with others, depending on what the environment in front of them is offering. So it just makes them really kind of agile, and just the ability to adapt to kind of any situation. The next pillar that we like to talk about is I can't remember the way that I've labeled them in the thing, but there is imagination. And so imagination requires being able to think about a solution and come up with innovative solutions to different problems. And so we see that in some species where octopuses are in a completely different environment, like Lembe Strait. This is like a dive area that's full of volcanic black sand, and there's nowhere to hide. It's just like an underwater desert. And the species of octopus, there's a lot of species of octopus here, and they've all come up with very different solutions to this problem of not being able to hide anywhere. The mimic octopus, for example, impersonates different animals. And then the coconut octopus, which is my favorite, finds different objects to create portable shelter.
Yeah, and we're gonna play some really cool videos and you can kind of like, I guess, determine whether or not it is showcasing that area of intelligence. So if you could, I guess, run through the other couple, and then we'll start playing some videos, and then we can just kind of watch them, and you can tell me like what area of intelligence does this kind of fall under. I thought it'd be really cool because what I've learned about OctoNation too is just like, as much as they love each other, they love other octopus fans, they love watching the octopus more than watching humans talk. And so we're going to go over and watch videos and then talk over those videos.
Totally. I'd much rather watch octopus than look at people than watch people talk. So yeah, the next one is reasoning. And so it kind of involves drawing logical connections between causes and effect. And so this can also play out in different types of problems that an animal is trying to overcome. One particular one where scientists or comparative psychologists really look for ability to reason is if an animal uses tools. And so the reason that we look at that is, do they understand that using this tool will have an effect? So that one thing is connected to another. And so a lot of the reasoning studies are focused around tool use in other animals like chimpanzees and crows and cetaceans.
Yeah.
And then the last one is memory and foresight. And so this is really important because we're looking at, until the late or mid 1990s, we actually thought this type of memory and foresight that I mainly study in cuttlefish was unique to humans. And then my PhD mentor at University of Cambridge, Nikki Clayton, she was able to show evidence of this in jays, Eurasian, in scrub jays. And then, so the ability is basically remembering, being able to remember specific past events that are personal to you, they're subjective experiences, and then being able to use those memories to anticipate a future scenario. Now, the foresight has only really been shown, there's strong evidence of that in great apes, aside from humans, chimpanzees and orangutans, and then your corvids, so your large brain birds like your crows and your jays. There are like basic forms of kind of anticipation that we've shown in cuttlefish because they can delay gratification, but yeah, nothing concrete in octopus. And like I said, we're only at the tip of the iceberg. There is still so much to find out.
I feel like people that follow OctoNation have seen so many videos and have empathy towards animals. It's kind of like, I always say, I've my German Shepherd behind me sleeping, But I feel like I know when she wants to get water. I feel like I know when she wants to go outside. And so after watching thousands and thousands of videos, I feel like I'm just like, it's almost like you have this pull, and I don't know if anybody watching feels that too, where it's just like it's got to remember that, or it's got to feel that, and you kind of see that. You'll see that in the videos that we'll play, and we can talk over. But let's just get started with playing some of the videos and just kind of talking over them. The first one that I wanted to bring up was the Octopuses, because this went viral recently again on TikTok. With people showcasing the species out near you, and what does this really showcase as far as intelligence is concerned?
I think this is quite interesting in the social space. So I guess there are two leading theories as to why animals evolved intelligence. One of them is to overcome challenges that they find in their environment. So how to find food, how to find shelter, how to find mates, how to avoid predators. And we see that octopuses definitely have those challenges, as do many other animals that have advanced cognition. But another theory is that intelligence and large brains evolved because of social challenges. So, having to remember who's your friend, who's your foe, who did something bad to you, last week, or who did something good to you, and having to remember those social relationships, having to have kind of behaviors to keep the peace, but also to compete. Now, the great thing about octopuses is that they're not social in the same way that, say, chimpanzees and crows are social. But this site down in Jervis Bay shows that octopuses are actually living in close proximity to one another. And it's really wild because it's not that common. It's more common than we once thought. But usually they're big loners. And so here, within a small space, you see octopuses hanging out together. But you can also see there's a bit of tolerance, but there's also a little bit of competition. And so they're throwing debris at each other, and that could just be a signal of, back off, you're getting too close. Some of the research that came out of that video, out of those observations, was that females do it a lot to males, and so that could just be like, you were harassing me. I'm not keen for this type of attention.
Yeah, that was a big story that went viral. It was like, I think the headline was like, females throw things at males that are harassing them, or something like that. And they speculated that it might be because they're trying to not copy, or like not mate, or like get that thing away from me. Like, I'm not trying to start my. But let's continue this, because I have one of your favorite species here.
Okay.
Let's see. So this coconut octopus.
Yeah.
Just what you missed here in the beginning is that it's kind of taking the shell away from its den area, and then I guess using its siphon to kind of like excavate or like blow off the sand. So what does this say about like intelligence as far as like them wanting to keep their area tidy, or like what is it doing here, you think?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of evidence to show that octopuses like to keep their dens tidy. He's moving away and expelling that debris, but also when they take food back to their den, they generally come out away from their den after they eat it and expel any kind of shells or kind of crustacean that is left over away from their den. And that could just be like, so they don't draw attention to their den. They don't want predators kind of coming around and seeking them out.
Yeah, on the page, sorry, I took you off. On the page we have on the Octopus Intelligence page, the blog that Alex wrote for us, we have a video of an octopus seemingly discarding like carapace or like crabs or something away from its den. I guess, and I don't know, like I was just like, is this a learned behavior where it's like, if I have this here, then I'm attracting predators, so I will go away from my den, expel it, and then come back to my den. It seems, I mean, that seems pretty like, so like what when it comes to, I guess, the research on it, what more kind of like needs to be at play to be like, no, that's totally what it's doing?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to isolate whether. So yeah, the way I guess you would test it is you'd have one group of octopus that have been exposed to predators that haven't been exposed to predators, and then see if the behavior is learnt or if the ones that are exposed to predators are more likely to expel the debris away from. And I don't know if anyone's done that, but I've definitely seen this sort of behavior out in the wild a lot. And that's the beauty of studying these animals, because a lot of the behaviors that you see out in the wild is what inspires those questions. And then you go back and you're like, oh, we could test this and see what's driving it.
A lot of these videos come from the Lembe region, and I have this one up here just because Ben Traer, he is at Manta Dive, and he's formed quite a close relationship with all of the coconut octopuses there, and he's seen and witnessed them do all sorts of different really cool behaviors. But as far as I know that we a while back had some information on I guess approaching octopuses in the wild, and kind of like having them come to you when an octopus like this sees like a human or is interacting with a human. Like, what do we know about like the human octopus interaction, I guess, in the wild? Like, I mean, everybody knows the my octopus teacher situation, but do we kind of know how they feel about us in the wild? Are we just like another thing? What is that relationship like?
So I think that octopuses, more so than cuttlefish, have really, really distinct personalities. So you'll find ones that are super friendly and they want to interact, and others that are just, complete introverts and frightened and don't want to interact. And you just have to respect that. I think that octopuses, when you do find one that's bold and willing to interact with you, then you just have to show a little bit of patience, sit with it. Sometimes I've heard of divers going back, or snorkelers, continuously over a week, and then the octopus gets used to that particular diver and they come out and they give you this little handshake. And I think that interaction is respectful. It's on their terms. You have to wait for them to make the first kind of approach. And they generally, if they feel calm and they feel comfortable with your presence, they will want to interact. They have a taste by touch sensation on their suckers. So think of the sucker as, having three kind of senses. It's like having a tongue, a nose, and a fingertip all in one. And each arm is covered by hundreds of these suckers. So it's very sensitive. And so they like to, if they're feeling calm and willing to interact with you, they like to taste you. But the type of interaction that I think we should avoid is ever picking them up and taking them away from their den and putting them in the water column, which we see on some of these Instagram accounts now. And it's just, the reason being is that octopuses, despite being marine animals, they're not the best swimmers. It's actually very energetic for them to have to swim around. A lot of them just crawl on the bottom, and then if they're trying to catch something or they're trying to get away from the predator, then they'll expel a lot of energy to swim away. If you're bringing an octopus into the water column, that's exhausting for them and also completely terrifying. They don't have anything to protect themselves. Their protection is being able to camouflage and hide on the bottom. And so they feel exposed, they feel frightened, they get exhausted. And then it also leaves them exposed to predators once you've gotten your selfie and terrified this poor critter. So, it doesn't feel good either. Like, you want to have a special moment that is a two-way street. And so I think having the interaction based on their terms is kind of like getting octopus consent.
I know, Chelsea, you're at a very popular dive site out there in Blue Heron Bridge. What is it like out there? Do you have a lot of people that are trying to interact with the octopuses, or?
I'm based in South Florida, and a lot of my octopus research is in a shallow lagoon where seasonally we got a lot of juvenile octopuses. So it's great because, I guess, for research it's great, and also for the general public to have that special observation and interaction on the octopus's terms there, because you get to see octopuses frequently, and also they start to acclimate to divers. They don't necessarily see us as a predator, but that's with the octopus getting used to you, like you mentioned, Alex, being patient and on their terms. And when you were saying that, I was just thinking about that. A lot of people don't know that even on research dives, you know, I want their natural behaviors. So it's on the octopus's terms, and I could be waiting an hour for an octopus to come out of its den and to start natural foraging behaviors, different types of camouflage. But when they do, it's natural, and they are not in that defense mode like you were talking about, when people, if they pick them up or yank them out of their dens and throw them up in the water column, then like that's it. That octopus is in defense mode, and it's not good for the octopus. It's not good for the diver. It's not good for anyone. And so
Cy mentions, Chelsea, in the book Secrets of the Octopus, which we're all actually in. Alex wrote the foreword of the book. And Chelsea, her work is talked about because she created the octopus monitoring gadget, the OMG, that monitors octopuses so she can see all those natural, really cool behaviors. And we have some video footage that we're going to show a little bit. And I was able to write the species profiles in the back, which was a huge honor. So if you want to learn more about this, you can always go to secretsoftheoctopus.com and get a copy. But back into the this video footage. This is one of my favorite clips, just to kind of like look at how incredible the octopuses are. So, and I think you saw this one where like an octopus is, you know, kind of like pushing an eel out of this area so that it can kind of go in. And so I'm not too sure, like, as far as intelligence is concerned, what you would chalk that up to.
I mean, it's so interesting. Like, look at it turning inside out for one. And eels have really sharp teeth. And so this octopus is probably returning to a den that it previously used, because they sometimes have multiple dens, and they can stay in those dens for weeks at a time. And it looks like he was surprised to see an eel, but automatically goes into this defensive mode. The mantle itself is quite large, so it's made itself large, and it's turned itself inside out to expose its beak as well, because that's probably the only thing that it can use to attack. Everything else is quite soft. So yeah, like, they're just, again, this is an incredible example of just flexibility and being able to switch from what I'm sure at the beginning of that video clip was just swimming along to defensive mode in a way that is defensive towards an eel in the matter of seconds.
Yeah. What I thought was really interesting about this too is you can clearly see in the beginning that the octopus is kind of flattening its suckers out too, and like maybe contracting them and like turning its body into like almost a shield, where it's just like, you know, just this flat thing, like you can't bite anything on me because I'm going to just tense up and turn myself into this immovable object almost.
Yeah, and protecting its body in that way, which has the softer, because like you said, the arms or the suckers would be more rubbery, so protecting its body. So just excellent use of
this one too. The same kind of like the same thing with. I'm sure you've seen this video that Chelsea took, but it's the relationship between birds and octopuses is an interesting one out where she's at.
I'm not seeing anything.
Oh, let me pull it up.
Maybe it's frozen a little bit, or
sorry, can you see it now?
No.
Okay. All right. Let me
anticipation. We're just building it up.
Yeah. Let's see.
Eels always look surprised. I'm reading the comments about, yes, I feel like one of the octopus's main predators is eels. So they definitely have different behaviors or defense tactics to avoid those eels that definitely go into crevices that octopuses are also using or out foraging, especially during the daytime. And as Warren's working on the video, there are many predators to an octopus. Cue this diving bird you can see right here. So a lot of people may think that the animal has to be in the water. Well, not necessarily. We have these diving marine birds, excellent vision there, diving down. You can see the octopus is pretty bold. We talked about them having different, bold or shy personalities, and so you see that octopus is bold, just swatting back at that diving bird. And this is more footage of the OMG with that great camouflage. The octopus is coming back, and we've got a mutton snapper that's gonna pop out of the corner. And when that camouflage fails, the octopus moves to a different defense move of that defensive behavior, getting really big and scary with that big eye ring. Same here, you see with this little long arm octopus trying to look big and scary as that yellow stingray swims by.
And you'll notice, in both that one and the last one, the defensive tactic that they move to often involves a flash of white, and that's usually to try and confuse the predator.
And here's another eel. So you saw that octopus just comes out late at night to forage. This is the common octopus, and they forage usually during the nighttime. And that eel takes over, trying to be sneaking into its den. And so you can see in the back corner, this octopus it's slowly moving in.
They're so fun to watch.
They are. You can just watch them forever.
I know. I'm sure you had to review hours and hours and hours of footage with the octopus.
Oh, yes. I'm trying to think over how many. Oh, my gosh, so much.
Yeah.
Nope.
Rick said, cue the Jaws theme.
Yes.
Yeah, this is just, it's wild. You think it'd be like scared of it, but it's like, no, like scram. Like,
get out of here.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and they do use like even to get fish away. They do use their arms to kind of punch. Punch away, other animals that might be annoying them, or.
Then we have just like different species. We found one of this paper, this male Argonaut here. Can you see this video?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And just, how I guess they learned to, utilize other animals as a form of transportation, or, has this been studied as far as like, their propensity to kind of use other objects to kind of make their way in the open water column?
So in terms of like, we call this hitchhiking. I think there's only been like observational kind of papers that have been published about animals that hitchhike, and they use them to get around either in the water column or also along the ground. But it's pretty wild. And you always do wonder, like, is this a behavior that they learn over time, or is this a behavior that's hardwired? This is my own theory that hasn't been tested, but I feel like a lot of octopus species, because they essentially hatch from their eggs as orphans, they don't have any parental care, that they're driven by a lot of curiosity. And so that's why they might want to interact with humans, because they need to learn in a really short amount of time, because nothing else is guiding them except their own experiences. They don't have any kin to help guide them through the world.
That's why for the longest time, I think one of the first publications of just the octopus in literature was like with Aristotle saying that the octopus was a stupid creature. It would approach man's hand if lowered in the water. And I guess what we could surmise about that is it's because they were curious, not because they were like, surely this thing is going to eat me. Like maybe Aristotle thought, like, you should know that I'm a predator. Like, you shouldn't approach my hand. And so I just think it's funny how we've kind of changed based on what we know now.
Yeah. Yes, we've reframed it.
Yes, for sure. let's get some more things. This is another just interesting thing. I'm not too sure if you've seen this behavior with the female Argonaut, how when they're brooding their eggs, they kind of band together and form chains and kind of pull in and like hunker down with each other. This is kind of depressing, but it's just when it comes to intelligence, the fact that they learned to kind of like, okay, there's strength in numbers here. And they can kind of determine their own species. I'm curious as to, what this might mean from an intelligence standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think when it comes to banding together in groups, this is a way to minimize predation risk. And just interesting to, again, we don't know, like I said, a lot of the octopus intelligence, we've only kind of touched the tip of the iceberg, but whether this is a learnt behavior or whether it's innate.
Yeah.
I mean, that like, for example, there's some research on squid, and squid that have been injured would generally end up trying to be in the center of their school, so they feel more protected by the uninjured squid around them. So there definitely is, like, even for animals that aggregate, there are learning opportunities, and they then adapt their behavior because they know they have an injured arm and they might be picked off more quickly if they're on the outskirts of the school.
Yeah, there's always something. That's, I think, what everybody loves about OctoNation and just octopuses in general, is that there's always something new. And I mean, when you have creatures that have been on this planet for hundreds of millions of years, they've figured out enough to get to this point, right? To survive massive events. One of the favorite things that people love watching about OctoNation is just color change. So as far as intelligence is concerned and color change, what do we know about that?
So the color change I think predominantly people would think that it's just a hardwired kind of behavior, but we know how complex it is. And like I said, we've only scratched the surface, that it's not the same pattern that they're producing over and over. So there was a study done on cuttlefish that showed that there can be just tiny little adjustments, and they had to get a huge computer to be able to process all the data from these body patterns that they were producing. And even depending on the substrate that they're on, one part of their body would adjust slightly just to blend in better. And then you also have differences in camouflage abilities across species, depending on the complexity of their environment. So this species, for example, looks like it lives in a pretty bland environment. It might not have that many disguises, but something like a day octopus that lives on a complex coral reef has a huge repertoire. And some of the work by Roger Hanlon showed that they can change body patterns up to 200 times an hour. And so that might not sound like a lot, but just, imagine changing outfit 200 times within 1 hour. And the decisions, I mean, the research is now showing that it's not like a reflex. There are decisions going on in the octopus's brain and what body pattern they should use to match their surroundings.
In the blog, you'd mentioned Inky, because Inky, I mean, his great escape was pretty remarkable. But I'll just bring up this image and kind of let you kind of talk about that story.
Yeah, I mean, Inky, he escaped from his tank in New Zealand at an aquarium and, came down a downpipe, crawled across the floor, and then was able to find an external drain that went out into the ocean. This isn't a one-off event. Like, I've heard a lot of people that work in aquariums where octopuses have tried similar escapes. Sadly, some of them are not successful, and you'll find a dead octopus in the aquarium. I've found a few, thankfully they weren't dead, where I got there in time and I was able to plonk them back in water. I remember being at, some of the labs that I work on, and the first thing you do when you go into an aquarium is just check that everyone's octopuses are in their tank. And this could be, you know, I know researchers that have even put bricks on top of the lids, and they still find the tiniest way to escape. So they can fit into any sort of space that is as big as their beak. So that's the only hard kind of object within their body. But everything else, like, they just can contort into the tiniest spaces. Have you had those experiences, Chelsea, with working with octopuses?
Some of them. A lot of my work has been in the field, but just recently I started to do more research in the lab at the Marine Biological Laboratory. And yes, the securing those tanks with bricks on top is a real thing. And it's not even for really large octopuses. I mean, you can have a football-sized octopus or even smaller, but they're just they're all muscle, so they're super strong. So it's like, yes, you've got to secure that lid and make sure.
Yeah, we used to use like cable ties and bricks, and you always have that still manages to escape.
Also, I'm just playing your video here of the various different ways that octopuses.
Different types of camouflage. There we go. So yeah, we can have what they call background matching, and then we have the mimicry, like the flounder of flatfish, and here you have what we call masking raid, or the moving rock trick, another type of masquerade looking like an object, like a plant or seaweed. So you can even see in like sandy environments, there are certain things around that the octopus might look like algae or seagrass. I always say the name of the game is just don't look like an octopus, you know, from that visual predator search image. You just confuse them. And like the octopus may not have an exact match, but that's okay. It doesn't need to. It just, you know, needs to look similar to the background or look like floating seaweed. And what you were mentioning earlier, Alex, about the day octopus changing, like 200 outfits, 300 different types of camouflage, because it's active during the day and it's in those complex environments on coral reefs. It may go elsewhere, and so those are decisions that the octopus is making. And just to like think about that. And octopuses, they can change the skin color pattern like in less than a second. So I'm like just thinking about this brain power, you know, in these animals that they have, and like they definitely have to do it, you know, for survival. They've got this on them that they've got to make those quick decisions for their survival.
Yeah, absolutely. And they think that it was the pressure of having, because the ancestors of octopuses used to have a shell, and then they moved into deeper water where it's dark. They didn't need this protective outer, you know, encasing anymore. So they evolved losing that shell. But then when they came back and infiltrated shallow water again, that's what thought, you know, people think that's what pressured the octopus and other cephalopods to then have this color changing skin, because that's how they were going to protect themselves from predators.
Yeah, I was just going through and seeing some of the videos. I know that there was a viral moment earlier this year with this story of the shark and with the Maori octopus, Maori, that was riding atop. I think it was a mako shark.
That's wild. With all the AI out there, I remember I had to watch this over and over and be like, is this real?
Yes. We could talk about that too, just with all the wild AI. But I would think that like what I found is that AI can't quite get the octopus right. Like it's always had a very difficult time. Like every single time I see a video, and maybe it's just me because I've seen so many of them, I'm just like, there's 3 rows of suckers, or there's always like 2 siphons, or there's, you know,
or a split arm, like I don't know, I always see the split arm,
or there's suckers on
multiple like suckers. Yeah,
there's suckers on top of
or they're on the side. It's really bad.
But with this one, I think people were trying to figure out whether or not that octopus was legitimately riding the shark. But you know, I wrote a blog about this, and essentially I was just like, no, and they were just like, well, I was like, it was just probably trying not to get eaten,
I reckon.
And octopuses, what we've seen them do over and over again is, and they do this to humans too. And a lot of times people think, oh, the octopus is choosing me, or the octopus, like in my octopus teacher. I'm like, at the end of the day, the octopus is trying to protect itself from getting eaten. And so it's learned that if it just flattens all of its suckers on an object, then it can't quite eat it, and so,
and on the back, like I've noticed some people who are trying to extract an octopus from its den, sometimes they feel like it's a losing battle. The octopus will go onto the back of the diver, and so they're like, okay, now they can't hurt me with their arms. So I reckon, I'm theorizing here, but the mako might have been kind of trying to attack it, and then the octopus just climbed on top away from it.
In that blog too, because I went down a rabbit hole with the bottlenose dolphins and that study that they essentially tenderize the octopus, very similar to how like maybe people in the Mediterranean will hit octopuses on top of rocks, but they use the surface of the sea to essentially discombobulate or dismember octopuses. And so, I think the mako sharks have also been seen jumping out of the water at high speeds and slamming things on the water surface to kind of like break up. Because I think they've learned, in bottlenose dolphins, especially because they do learn, in pods, like, hey, you really want to make sure you break up that octopus because, Fred over there didn't make it.
I can't remember. Did it choke the octopus? Did it choke the dolphin in the end? So the dolphin didn't make it.
Yeah, it asphyxiated. They found it washed up with the octopus dead and the dolphin dead as well. So that was a fascinating research study. So when everybody's like, "Oh, look, that octopus is riding that dolphin," I'm like, this is not a Disney movie. This is not what's happening here.
They're not best mates.
No. I'm trying to see what else we have here. Oh, just more coconut octopuses kind of using.
Well, I will say something about this and the intelligence. So, I mean, funnily enough, they're called coconut octopus or the veined octopus. But when you're out in Lembe, what you'll notice is they have a preference for these scallop shells. And I wonder if it's because the coconut it might be a little bit more buoyant. I mean, you do see them in coconuts, but they do seek out these scallop shells. And what I find so fascinating is that they might have one half and then they scope out looking for another half that just fits seamlessly. Like it's just perfect. And so and this is something that I'd love to study further, but just from these very short observations that I have, it seems like they have a preference and they're selecting tools, and that sort of sophistication is something that we usually attribute to, chimpanzees or Californian crows. So it would be super interesting to go out there and kind of formally test for their preferences and see whether they, how they select for these different kind of objects. And there is a lot of, sadly, when you go out to this area, a lot of debris, like a lot of human debris, plastic, and they do use some of those objects, but you can tell that these scallop shells are kind of the gold standard for creating.
I definitely think that video was from Ben from Manta Dive. He has so much footage. He's constantly getting reached out to license his footage because he has so many unique behaviors. But I've seen that too, where the octopus looks as if it's shopping on the ocean floor for the perfect shoe or the perfect, thing to kind of barricade itself. And you can see that it's like, it seems to be, I should say, discerning, like, hey, this isn't going to work, or this is too big, or this is going to be cumbersome to walk with, and then leaving it and then going off and finding, something else. And even be a shell, but it could be multiple items. Like I've seen it with glass, with a shell, and with, something else. It's pretty fascinating to watch for sure.
And that could, that's a great, I think that particular wild kind of situation is a great opportunity to study something like reasoning. Do they have an understanding of cause and effect in terms of their tool selection and how the pieces fit together? And is one more suitable to get rid of, to avoid certain predators in that environment?
Yeah. What's next for you as it relates to just like your research and your study? I know that you were just out, researching. What are your current projects? What's really exciting to you right now?
So I do have a project I'm a collaborator on, so I'm not leading it. The leader is Piero Amodio, and he is leading a project up in the Great Barrier Reef. So I'll be there with the team in a few weeks, and we're going to be looking at the collaborative hunting between day octopus and the coral trout. And so that's really exciting. There's a whole team of us going for Nat Geo Explorers. So I'm going to be the storyteller, and we've also got an underwater filmmaker, and then two a behavioral ecologist and another comparative psychologist. So that's exciting, just to really understand the nuances of what is important between how the trout kind of might signal for the octopus to come and start the hunt. What are the real important parts of that body language and how they communicate during that hunt? So that's one project. Another one.
Sorry, like wasn't there research around where it's just like the octopus? They had mentioned something along the lines of that they're aware if the fish is trying to get more than its share, and they like
not pulling their weight.
Yeah, I forget what the headline was, but it was something along like they punch lying fish, or they can discern like, hey, yeah.
So there's a few different species of reef fish that will follow around the day octopus. Some of them are more active collaborators, and others are just ones that like pick off any kind of
no manners.
Leftovers, exactly. The day octopus, if there's one fish that is really not pulling their weight and just trying to get some of the prey, they'll punch. It's just so it's kind of like a penalty of being like, you're not pulling your weight and you're just being too much of a scavenger.
That's so cool.
It's a really interesting, kind of system. Another one that I'm applying funds is to go and look at the coconut octopus and in Lembe, and to try and understand just a bit more about this tool use, because there was one paper, I think back in 2009, that documented this behavior, but since then no one's really looked at the intricacies of like, how sophisticated is it? Do they have the preferences? Do they have the cognition to select better tools? And just from the observations, I'm like, I feel like there's something here, but it needs to be formally tested.
Yeah. And I mean, both of those seem like I feel like they're like follow-up episodes to Secrets of the Octopus. So James Cameron, get back on the octopus. I mean, I know he's a huge fan. I saw some of your interviews with him, and he was just like, yeah, Octopuses inspired Avatar. Octopuses inspired so much. And so I think, maybe selling the creating like a sizzle reel of just all the weird and wonderful things that the coconut octopus is doing. I feel like the coconut and the day octopus are such characters, in the film of Octopuses. But I guess they all kind of are. If you get into them, we have people. For those of you watching, you can put in the comment section what your favorite octopus species is and why. That'd be really fun. But also, if anybody has any questions, I'm going to because we're kind of coming to time, I'm going to go back through and start people's questions.
Yeah, I was just scrolling, and Warren, when you asked Alex about her upcoming projects, it just reminded me of one of the questions about the marshmallow test. And there was a question about if it's been studied in octopus. So Alex, if you wanted to chat a little bit about if our audience doesn't know, what is the marshmallow test? And if there has been any research, it was done in cuttlefish, if there has been any research done in octopus.
As far as I'm aware, I don't think it's been done in octopus.
Yeah.
I completed the study in cuttlefish at the Marine Biological Laboratory. So essentially, the marshmallow test was designed at Stanford University back in the 1970s to test for self-control in young children. And so what the researchers did is they would offer one marshmallow to a child and say, if you wait 15 minutes and don't eat this marshmallow, you'll be awarded with a second marshmallow. And then they'd walk out and kind of film their response. And what they showed is that self-control is very variable. And so some kids couldn't hold out, other kids could. There was different coping mechanisms, like they'd turn away or try and distract themselves from the temptation of the single marshmallow. So comparative psychologists have adapted that test to test for self-control in different animals, but it had never been done in an invertebrate, in an animal without a backbone. So I thought, I'm going to try and adapt it and try and test for this in cuttlefish. There's a lot of training involved because obviously you can't tell a cuttlefish, don't eat this thing and wait and you get a second one. And I didn't use marshmallows because I don't think that would be effective. I used different types of shrimp. But the training essentially involved these different clear boxes that were put into the tank of the cuttlefish. One was signaled with a circle, and the other one was signaled with it had a black triangle on it. Mm-hmm. And what the cuttlefish were trained to learn is that, say, the circle box, the door would open immediately once the food was dropped in, and the triangle box, the door would open after a delay. So once they learn that the different boxes have different types of access, then you can test for self-control. And yes, and so essentially I had a live grass shrimp and then pieces of like thawed prawn. And you test for their preferences at the beginning, and cuttlefish, even though they're reared on the thawed prawn and they eat it every day, they prefer the live grass shrimp. And I think at the beginning of this, I expected the cuttlefish to have waiting times of a few seconds, which is what you see in a lot of rodents and pigeons. But they ended up waiting minutes. My best subject waited 2.5 minutes, which is up there with what you see in crows and chimpanzees. Mm-hmm. And so I was just gobsmacked, because here you have a very short-lived animal. Why delay gratification? And they even showed some coping mechanisms that you see in kids, like when they're waiting for their preferred treat, they would turn away from the temptation of the thawed prawn, as if not to look at it. And that's what I also found in Eurasian jays, and that you see it if you look up the marshmallow test. You see kids do it. I don't think
do it too, for sure.
Yes,
yeah.
I don't think it's been done in octopuses. I think the training process would be so difficult. But yeah, I hope someone is game enough to take that on.
Nice. So we have some questions. First one is, among all types, is there any type that shows, I guess any species, that shows the most skills in solving problems or skills in hiding, hunting, etc.? And how long does an octopus's memory last?
So the first part of that question, I think the shallow water species are shown to have the most sophisticated problem-solving skills, and that is because they live in more complex environments. And so, as Warren said before, the day octopus shows pretty sophisticated camouflage, as well as the collaborative hunting. And then we've got other more shallow water species in a completely different environment that show problem solving skills in a different way, like the mimic octopus, who impersonates different animals, and then the coconut octopus that uses tools. In terms of memory loss, I'm going to have to rack my brain. It's up to days, I'm pretty sure. So the octopuses have both short and long-term memory. And I know that there was a study done on like shelter location by Jean Boll and some of her colleagues. And I'm pretty sure that, the memory can last up to days, that they can locate the shelter days after they've been exposed to it.
Yeah, I guess, like the day octopus, if you think of it as like living in New York City with it teeming with all sorts of like different things going on, just having more like awareness, just all this
Street
all
smarts.
street smarts. Yeah, it's like there's so many different types of species, and I think the same thing with Maori octopus, where there's so many things going on in its environment that you just see them do a lot of really cool things. What I love about Maori octopus too is the deep webbing. It's almost like a circus tent of webbing to kind of like capture prey. Great question. Thank you so much. We had another one. Can they recognize people? If so, for how long?
So there has been a study to show that they can recognize their carers in an aquarium and people that like they have good interactions with, and then people that they don't have good interactions with. And so I think the study was done where they try to get someone that would feed them and then have positive interactions, and then another person that wouldn't feed them, and they were the same height, similar build, and they seem to recognize individuals that way. In terms of like what they were looking for, I don't know if it was the fine details that we use to look, to recognize a human face, but maybe it was more something about shapes or contrast or something like that. I can't even remember if the study allowed the octopus to touch them. I don't think they did, because they were looking at visual recognition. But touching is definitely a sure way for individuals to recognize, oh, yeah, I remember that taste.
Yeah. Chelsea, with your experience at Blue Heron Bridge, I mean, was there a specific one that you interacted with day after day that you felt or believed that had some semblance of like, oh yeah, there's that one girl. there's the octo girl.
Here she comes again. She's back. I can't say not really, just because I'm trying to find different individuals and not necessarily go back to the same one. Over time, I've been looking, at how they create or what substrates they use to create their dens, individual diets. So I'm trying to conquer all of the sea, figuring out like how many octopuses use the lagoon as a habitat. So not necessarily going back to the sea one to see if it recognizes me, but there was one individual that I did kind of track for almost maybe 3 weeks or so, but I have no idea if it like, recognized me. It just like kind of hung out in its den, and I was just documenting it because it looked like a different, possibly a new species to South Florida. So I would keep visiting it to take photos to get different body patterns to try to ID it. And I think it also had other scuba divers or visitors in the area. So I can't tell you if they recognize me or not, but that would be cool if they like throw up their arm and she's back.
We had the same question of curious if we've done the marshmallow test on octopuses. Alex, you might have to knock that test out so we can.
I know. After how much training went into the cuttlefish, I'm like, I can be a collaborator, but I don't want to actually do the test myself.
I think the coconut octopus would be the perfect subject for that one, because it seems like I've seen just so many videos of them. Like, was it Alora or Egbert the octopus? I'm not too sure if that individual is a coconut octopus, but just like the way that they interact too with, I think there was this woman who went and she fed Egbert and would give him like little scraps of fish and everything like that. And then there'd be all these fish that would kind of like swarm Egbert, and you would see him slapping at them. And then he'd be like, he kind of like got annoyed and he was like, oh, I'm just going to throw this away. And like, okay, fish, have it. Like, you're not worth my time almost. And so they just like, it's almost like watching a cartoon sometimes where you're just like, you feel like, oh, okay, what's going on here.
Yeah.
But,
I will say that I have had ideas of how to test for a different type of self-control in octopus. It's more spatial self-control rather than temporal, which is time self-control. And there was a really cool study where they did this in ants. And I thought of maybe testing it in coconut octopus. If I get my grant, maybe I can.
Yes. Do you think octopuses in captivity have the same ability to learn a skill by imitating something they see on a screen, or maybe just,
We did try this. So just before I started my PhD, I did a small little project with Peter Godfrey Smith, who is the author of Other Minds, where we were opening a jar on a screen. So we filmed a human opening a jar to get a crab, and the octopus would watch it, and then we would give the jar with the crab inside to the octopus to see if the individuals that would see that video or a video of some other thing that had nothing to do with the jar were better at opening and getting the crab inside. And we just got really mixed results. I think this is why I ended up doing cuttlefish for my PhD, because the personality differences between the subjects that we had, and not even just across the individuals, but also just the octopuses we were using, which was called the gloomy octopus, or the Sydney common octopus, was super moody. And so sometimes they'd really want to interact, and then other days they'd be like, meh, I'm not participating. And so I just wasn't getting consistent data. Yeah. So inconclusive.
Besides their showing on their skin, how can we test stress levels in octopuses? For example, we humans really strong amount of cortisone. Do octopuses do that too?
So I think they're looking, like, body pattern is one. In terms of cortisone, I'm not sure. Someone did something on the GPOs and looking at their poo. I think there's like one study, and I don't know what type of hormone they were looking at, but they were able to look at some kind of stressor.
We'll put that in the comment section. I'll do some research and see if
so that's a little bit of what I'm starting to do for a new avenue of my research, is looking at octopus health and potentially stress levels. So taking, I'm looking at their skin microbiome, so I might be able to see if their microbiome is different from a normal or healthy octopus. The octopus could be stressed, so it might be in the microbiome, kind of be similar, like our gut microbiome might change when you're stressed. And also blood chemistry values, or even just your blood cell count. So what I was doing at the Marine Biological Laboratory was actually looking at establishing octopus health parameters. What's a healthy octopus? What's it look like when an octopus is stressed? So skin microbiome, blood chemistry. So we're looking at those values, as well as just their cell count, the blood cells that they have. And right now I'm kind of doing the literature review, but on cortisol levels, it's interesting because there's one paper that reports that they didn't see any cortisol levels in their blood when stressed. But there was another study that actually did skin swabs, and they saw cortisol levels increase or were present in their skin. So I'm kind of like, so there's still a lot of research that we need to do to figure out how to measure basically what are, I guess, stress markers or biomarkers that we use in octopuses, and how we test for these, if it's skin and what comes up on the skin, and what comes up when you're doing like a blood sample from an octopus.
Yeah. I'd love to chat to you more, Chelsea, because I'm trying to come up with an ethogram for the algae octopus, looking at body pattern and also heat, like using heat detection to see what can be defined as like a positive emotion or a negative emotion when you're exposed to different stimuli.
Yeah. Very cool.
Very, very cool. I always love all the like learning just about the latest stuff, because you see this stuff the longest time, and you see these videos and you're just like, can somebody figure this out?
And I feel like it takes so long. Like, you go out and you study it, and then you got to look at the data, and then you got to analyze it.
We're working on it.
I know.
We're working on it.
Let's see. Just one or two more questions. Are there significant differences in the blood chemistry for deep water versus reef-dwelling octopuses?
Of course, you had to bring this one up as soon as I just chatted about the blood. The blood chemistry values for reef-dwelling octopuses versus cold water versus deep. That's a great question, and there's probably some research, but I really think that we don't necessarily know. And wow, to get blood chemistry, like to get a blood sample from a deep sea octopus,
Right. Yeah.
really tricky. Maybe we can try that, but cold water would be really cool to do. And what's interesting is there really isn't too much out there right now on the blood chemistry, or it's only, you know, we start with a few species to try to get a good understanding, but we can't make these generalizations, especially tropical versus cold and versus deep octopus. So definitely something that, you know, I'll try the next research project. I'll
I
get
feel like
the
this is a good one to end on, just because we always see, you know, photos, or we always wonder, and this is like supposed to be a huge sign of intelligence, is recognizing your reflection. And so this question is, do they recognize themselves in a mirror? Can they feel stressed when, or I guess I answer that first part first.
Yeah, and so this is something I actually want to talk about in one of my future articles of this series. But a lot of the mirror recognition tests that have been tried on cephalopods and octopuses as well have failed. And the reason being is that the markers that they put on the skin, so when you do like a mirror self-recognition test, you have one group that has a visible marker and one group that has a mark, but it's a clear, like, so that's the control. So it's like, say, a bit of, you know, one marker might be red, and for the other group, the animals have been marked with something that's clear that they won't be able to see in the mirror. Now, the octopuses in both groups for this particular experiment were still touching their skin, so even when the mark did not have a color on it. And so what the scientists think is that they still can, there's just no way at the moment that we can mark an octopus without them having the sensation that the mark is there. And so we just, it's not the right test for the octopus. There's been some kind of suggestions to come up with different awareness experiments to test for self-awareness in octopus, like maybe look at body awareness, which I think would be a really interesting way, rather than, you know, mirror facial recognition, because they have such an agile body with no bones and they change color. And so coming up with a paradigm to test for body awareness would be really cool. And then the second part of, can they feel stress when in captivity? Absolutely. And this is one thing that I, you know, say to people who want to get a pet octopus: please don't go out and experience them in the wild. They're really difficult to take care of. They're great escape artists, and they also like really complex environments. And so when scientists use octopuses in a lab environment, like we're set up at places like the Marine Biological Laboratory that have the best facilities, and we're changing the environment, and the water quality is just, you know, tip top.
Yeah.
So it's, and I don't go to any facility unless it's like that type of standard, because I know the octopuses are going to be really well cared for, and there's a vet that specializes in cephalopod health there.
Yes, we have standards, people. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I mean, October, like I said, October is Octopus month, and it's we're on just at the end of it. So we had a lot of good programs this month. And I think after doing so many this month, me and Chelsea were talking about yesterday how we want to continue this series with a ton more visuals. And so, Alex, if you have any presentations or anything that you want to anything you want to present to the nation in the future, you know, just let us know.
Okay.
But for those of you who are watching, let us know what subjects, what species of octopuses, what topics you all are interested in, and we will go out and we will find those people. I know that Dr. Kurt Onthank is working on a new book right now around adaptation, and I don't know if he said the title, so I'm not going to say the title, but it's going to be really, really cool. And so we're going to get him on pretty soon to talk about that. But if you know anybody, just let us know. But we have everybody saying thank you, thank you, thank you. Any closing words, Chelsea or Alex, for Octopus month?
Just thanks for the interest. Like, I feel like, you know, octopuses are having their golden moment. And I love that people are so interested. And even in the time that I've worked with octopuses over the last 15 years, there's been a huge shift in how people see octopuses and how they feel about them. And I think that's fantastic.
Nice. Awesome. Well, everybody have a great rest of your Octopus month, and we'll connect soon.
Thanks for joining us.
Everyone.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.